Howdy, y'all, and welcome to David's Saturday Night Sit Back. I'm David, your host, and almost 3 years ago I started this podcast having no idea what it was going to become. After the first 12 episodes came out, I was approached by a 17-year-old in the gym who had told me that a year earlier he was so miserable that he tried to take his own life. Fast forward to today, he's alive, he's thriving, he's in the military now, and through that interaction I knew exactly what this podcast was going to become. I'm on a mission to find hidden gems in Austin, Texas, and give them a platform with one mandate: to tell personal stories that light the internal fire within you as you navigate the dark night of your soul. My endgame for this podcast is that one day I have thousands of messages from people all over the world telling me how these stories gave them the courage to take their dreams, turn them into goals, and chase those goals until they become reality. If today's episode does that for you, I'd love to hear about it. Send me an email to sitbackwithdavid@gmail.com. Let me introduce you to today's guests. I want you to imagine something. Imagine growing up in a small Texas town where faith runs deep, football shapes boys into men, and family is everything. You spend your life looking up to your father, not just because he raised you, but because he became your blueprint, your confidence, your example. Your reminder that no matter how big the world gets, you always know where home is. Now imagine losing that man during one of the most pivotal seasons of your life. Senior year of college. Your biggest mentor, your greatest source of belief, is gone. And then exactly 2 years later, life hands you a son of your own. Suddenly, grief becomes a legacy, pain becomes purpose, and the question changes from how do I keep going to how do I become the kind of father he was to me. Tonight's guest knows that journey firsthand. Born and raised in Honey Grove, Texas, Ben Patrick was a former varsity quarterback, farm kid, man of faith, new father, and someone deeply committed to health, discipline, and service. At just 23 years old, Ben has already walked through profound loss, unexpected fatherhood, and the challenge of building a family in a world that often makes consistency feel harder than ever. From helping cardiac patients recover after life-threatening events to balancing faith, fitness, family, food, football, and real life, Ben's story is one of stepping into manhood not when life feels convenient, but when life calls you forward. Tonight, we explore grief, masculinity, modern dating, health, fatherhood, and what it truly means to carry your father's lessons into the next generation. Sitting back with me today is Ben Patrick. Ben, thank you for who you are. Thank you for being here, and welcome to your episode on David's Saturday Night Sit Back.
Thank you, David. I'm just beyond blessed to be here and get to, share my story. And it's an amazing opportunity to be here. I've really, watched a lot of your stuff, and I've just been following along with, you and your journey. And so just the fact that I get to be a part of it, it's pretty awesome.
How'd that introduction sit with you?
Man, that was heavy off the gate. I thought tears are going to start coming down already. Man, that was an amazing intro. To put it in perspective like that, I think that's probably the first time I've heard, it kind of, that's the story of my life. And so kind of hearing it from, this perspective is pretty crazy. So, that's an amazing intro. So thank you for that. I really appreciate that.
You're welcome. I have some pictures of you that I wanted to share as we figure out the answer to the question, who is Ben? Before I show you any of these, who are you?
Well, before we do that, is there any chance that before we kind of get talking that we could maybe just pray before we start this podcast? I kind of would love to be in that present, that mindset, if you would be open to that.
I am open to that.
All right, sweet. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this wonderful day. Lord, thank you for my new friend David, for what he does and for the stories that he tells, for the way that he just shares your glory in others, Lord. I'm just so grateful to be alive in here today, Lord. I'm grateful for my family, the family of my own, and for good friends and for you and your faith, Lord, and just for everything that we've been through and the fact that we're here today. And I'm just so grateful to be here with David, and I just pray that you be through us and help us throughout this podcast, and may we just go out and do your work, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Sweet.
Why do you want to do that?
I do something, before I do anything, I try to pray. So whether that's starting my day at work, definitely meals, if we're eating, we always are praying before our meals. especially when something important to me, I feel like I want to just have that mindset, feel like God is just right there on my side. So, today being a little nervous coming in, which I wasn't expecting I was going to be nervous, but, just that prayer really kind of helped me, kind of feels like comforting. So I just was wanting to pray.
I have something that might ease your nerves a little bit, and maybe Bennett's as well.
Hey, Bennett.
Your mom wrote you a letter.
Really? I cannot wait to hear it.
We always knew we wanted 3 children, and you're the one that finally completed our family. You have always been the gentle bear that would do anything for anyone, always wanted to make your big brother and sister happy, and always looked up to them. You wanted to be their friend and hang out with them whatever they were doing. Ben loves all sports. He loves competing, but loved even more hanging out with friends and just spending time together and playing games, whether it be PlayStation or board games. He loved being part of the youth group at church and going on missions trips. He loved being a servant and helping people in need. Ben worked for the Texas A&M football team and especially enjoyed being a part of the big university and making friends so easily.
Whoop.
He has a sweet and gentle soul and now truly shines through as a new dad. Such a great and caring person to little Bennett and Kate. Ben also loves his job and taking care of his heart patients. I'm so proud of Ben and love him so much. From Mom.
Thank you, Mom. That's just the kindest words, and man, I have such amazing family around me. I truly do. I have an amazing mother, had an amazing father, amazing sister, amazing brother, obviously an amazing partner and an amazing son. And so just hearing, that I have, benefit from that and the person I try to be, and the way that they talk about me, I'm just, glad those are the things that shine through. So
I'm not going to forget the who are you question, but before we dive back into this one, what memories does this bring up?
Oh my gosh. Everything. This was the start of competition right here, baby.
How old? You were probably like, what, 3, 4, 5 in that picture?
Yeah. This was that is the Honey Grove Davy Crockett Day bicycle rodeo, baby. That is, oh my goodness. That is so awesome. That was my John Deere bicycle, as you can see. As far as speed and agility, maybe the other kids have me beat on 2 wheels versus 4. But man, if I didn't pedal my heart out on that thing, that's pretty awesome. That every year, man, the bike rodeo, I would literally go out into my parking lot or like our driveway, and I would just like ride my bike, and I'd practice doing turns, and I would speed up, and I would, I was training for it because I knew one day I was going to end up winning that bike rodeo. And sure enough, I think it was like, I don't even know what year. I was probably like 10. It was like getting towards the end of, I was getting older and I wasn't going to be able to participate in the bike rodeo anymore. And one year I finally did it. I finally won the rodeo. And the first place winner gets a brand new bike. And that year, since I moved up in an age level, I ended up getting a brand new mountain bike that had like 6 gear, like, changing. And man, it was a great experience.
You're beaming thinking about this right now.
Yeah, this is like a memory that, man, I completely forgot that the bike rodeo was so much fun. It was everything for sure. Yeah, there's Paige. Oh my gosh, that is some hair right there. That was the look, the Justin Bieber cut for sure. Paige, this definitely aged well. So, oh my gosh, and the shorts. You always had the below the knee khaki shorts.
Let me see real quick.
The pockets.
Yeah, I had some of those too.
Oh yeah,
yep,
for sure. I'd always just want to comb my hair straight down. My mom hated when I did that. She would be like, "Why don't you comb it to the side?" And she'd always want me to clean it up, but I always took that comb and I just went straight down with it.
Yes.
Man, I love that.
What's your and Paige's relationship like? Actually, can I rephrase that?
Yeah.
What was your and Paige and Carter's relationship like when you guys were growing up?
They, man, we used to call ourselves America's favorite siblings. Uh, I mean, in my head, we were, the perfect family siblings. Being the youngest, I always, you know, tried my best to be the mediator of when Paige and Carter would, get into arguments there. So to put in perspective, Carter is 6 years older than me. He's the oldest, and then my sister is 4 years older than me, Paige. And so those two, definitely pretty strong-minded. So they would kind of butt heads, especially once it got into like high school and everything. But as I felt like being the youngest, anytime I saw them fighting, my automatic instinct would be like, guys, you're siblings, you love each other, like don't fight. And so I don't know, I felt like we just really blended well together as a family and as siblings, and we just had so much fun together. Paige was always my, one of my sibling that she would teach me fashion, so she would teach me what I should be wearing, what I shouldn't be. And she was always kind of like the sibling that would make sure that I like knew what was right and wrong. And then Carter was kind of more of like the adventurous, outgoing kind of, let's go outdoors, let's go mudding, let's get on the four-wheelers, go hunting, go fishing. So they really balanced me really well in that way, because I can tell from who I am today that, each of them just have always been the ones to give me such good advice, and always looked out for me in every way, whether it was me wanting to spend, all of my money on like stupid video games versus like, them teaching me the importance of like saving up money to buying something nice. And so my siblings are everything to me.
That's cool. That's cool.
Oh, yeah.
What's going on in that one?
Yeah, it's a whole lot of yeehaw right there.
A whole lot of yeehaw.
That's what I'm talking about. Man, oh my gosh, Billy Bob's in Fort Worth. Man, that was one of the most fun nights that I can remember, just all of us getting to hang out together.
Who's in that picture?
My brother, my sister, my brother's wife, and my sister's now husband, my mom, and then at the very front there, that's my dad, and his belt buckle, his jeans, his cowboy hat with that classic Jack Patrick smile. So,
can I see that one more time?
Yeah.
So I definitely know who you are. That's got to be Mom, right?
Yep, Mom's in the back.
Is that Paige right there?
Paige is actually behind me. That's Shelby.
Okay, you're Carter's wife?
Yep, Carter's wife.
And that's Carter?
Yep, there's Carter right there. He looks a little bit different in that one.
And who's that?
That's Gabe. That's my sister's husband.
Yeah, that's a cool picture.
Yeah.
What comes up for you when you look at that one?
I don't know. I feel like, one, just the smiles on our faces kind of, that was at a time where, there was no known about the things that were to come, that it's just pure joy and happiness, and knowing that there's nothing, evil in the works. But a lot of it too, just Billy Bob's, and bye. I love you guys. Be safe. Okay. And so, this picture alone says a lot about my dad, a lot about our family. Obviously, us Patricks, we love to have some fun. That's for sure. But my dad was a huge rodeo guy. He was a calf roper back in the day, and so in high school, he quit sports after middle school. Once he got in high school, he just went straight rodeo competition. He used to, drive around to all these different towns back when he was like 15, traveling, staying the night by himself. and going to all the different competitions, and it's a very big part of who he is, and the rodeo, and that's just kind of the spirit, and that kind of embodies him. So
was he a Texan? Was he born and raised here?
yeah, so he was born and raised in Mineola, Texas, and so that's where we'd go and see my grandma. She was a home ec teacher there for over 30 years in Mineola, and so that's real East Texas, pretty close, about an hour and a half or so from Tyler. And so it's another small town. Now it's getting a lot bigger, but that's where my father's roots are from. So, in the Alba Golden area.
Alba Golden.
Yep. Yeah. So there's Alba, and then there's Golden, and like the school district is Alba Golden. So they're mixed together. Yep. There's some
Look at those
football
two
for
studs.
you. I know, man. Look at that those cleats. The all orange with the black. Had the black armband for the plays. And I mean, that's one thing that you'll see every single time, that belt buckle right there. My dad didn't leave the house without it. That's his pride and joy. He won that buckle.
How?
It's a national buckle, actually. And so, man, I wish I could have brushed up on the history a little bit better. I'm a little foggy on all the details of everything, but yeah, he won that buckle calf roping. So, I mean that's one of his most prized possessions. Yeah, I love that photo. I mean, I think that had to be from at least freshman year, I think. Yeah, that was definitely from freshman year.
So you're like 14 in that picture?
15.
15.
Yep.
I just assumed it was your senior year.
No.
But you do you are young there.
Yeah.
I didn't look at it closely enough.
I was skinny in that there, especially my freshman year. My junior year, going into my junior year after my sophomore year, I spent the summer in Kansas. My mom's side of the family, they're from Northwest Kansas. And stayed the summer with my aunt because my brother, I kind of tend to do, whatever he does, I'm like, I want to try that too. Me and him have always been similar in a lot of ways. And so I spent the summer as a lifeguard in Kansas, and I also did umpiring and for Little League and stuff. And one of the things I did a whole lot of was working out. In the high school there, I would go to the morning workouts at like 5:30 in the morning, and I'd go like every single morning to get my workout in for like an hour and a half, even to the point where they gave me a T-shirt at the end of the summer that, you're supposed to earn. And so since I showed up so many times and was consistent with working out, I ended up getting an Iron Eagle shirt. And so that was like me earning the shirt for, making it in super early and putting in the work. And I used to go to my workouts, and when I'd come back, I'd go to my aunt's house, and she'd always have the fridge full of eggs and bacon and then fruit for smoothies. And I would eat 6 fried eggs, and she would make me a big chocolate protein smoothie with fruit and bacon and toast and whatever the heck I wanted to. And it was like that like the entire summer. And by the time I came back, everybody was like, wait, hold on, Ben is like buff now? Like, what's going on? Because I like significantly like put on muscle mass that summer.
You did.
And so I felt like that's kind of where I transitioned from like the skinniness to like actually having a little bit of meat on my body. So
no, there is one picture. I didn't print it because it didn't seem like it was significant, but there's one picture on your Instagram of you when you were a lifeguard.
Oh,
so you
yeah.
got the spandex shirt on and your pecs and your arms and your shoulders. You look good, dog.
I appreciate
you were
that.
beefy that summer.
I remember
sure.
like people like commenting, like they would like do Instagram comments and be like, dang, Ben, like you been hitting the gym or something? Like I remember like I didn't quite notice it, but like looking back on photos, I didn't like it, at the time it doesn't seem like there's like that big of a change, but looking back on it, there definitely some growth that happened there. So
Yeah, for sure. When you think back on your childhood, or even as you were a teenager and becoming a man, essentially, was there any particular core values that your mom and your dad really wanted to make sure that you guys followed?
um, I would say, one thing that I've always noticed from my dad is just the way that he takes care of people. I you can see it through his job. The way my dad was a sales rep for Helena Chemical. He's been a sales rep at some other places, but especially growing up, that's where he was at for most of the time, and so he's just always had that way with people. The way that he just talked to people, made sure that they were good, asked about them, and then like going over, making sure we're going to see my grandma, and make sure that they're taken care of, my aunt, and so I just think that that's one of those things that they really instilled in, is just to try our best to care about others, especially family. You just got to take care of those around you, and I feel like hard work is obviously one of those too that comes to mind with growing up, and all of us kids, going to A&M, and just putting in the work in high school, and just not giving up on anything, and that's one of those for sure that comes to mind as well.
And you guys were raised Christian?
Yeah, we were raised Christian. My dad was a Southern Baptist kind of guy, and then my mom was raised in the Lutheran church in Kansas, and so there's a pretty significant difference between those two.
What's the biggest difference?
Man, one, Southern Baptist, the way that the preacher preaches is very I would have to say, just the energy and the, fist down on the table, this is the word of God. This is, we are not going to hell. You go to hell, you do this, which not all Southern Baptist churches are like that, but
So
definitely
an intensity factor.
there's an intensity factor versus you go to the Lutheran church, and everyone is just quiet, and the preacher, it's very structured. Everyone's reading from the same thing. You're making sure you're following the pamphlet. It's very similar to like the Methodist church, and so it's one of those where that intensity factor is definitely, it's very mellow in the church. So I'd say that's one of the big differences. But we ended up pretty much throughout growing up, we were mostly in the Methodist church, because that's kind of like was a good middle ground. And then once we got into like middle school age, my parents started going to non-denominational churches.
Do you know why?
I just think that they wanted to try out a different church, and I don't really know. I know there is a reason, but I can't remember right now. That's the one thing with being the youngest, is I feel like a lot of these things, I just was younger, so I don't remember, as well as like my siblings would. But no, I don't know what was the biggest reason why we switched churches. Yep, there's Carter. That is big bro right there. That's us on the mountain. We're snowboarding. Man, he definitely got me hooked on it. I remember us going on that trip. That was when we were in Montana, Bozeman, Montana, and went up the mountains up over there. And that was my first time, or that was my second time snowboarding. And that was one of like the last trips, big family trips that we got to go on with my dad, which was really cool. That was probably one of the best snowboarding experiences I've ever had. But me and my brother were like shredding the powder all day. It was just me and him the whole time. Like if you like, all the other family, spend half the time on the mountains, half the time, at the restaurants and stuff, but like me and Carter, we're just making, every single day trying to get as much time out on the snow as we can.
Heck yeah.
So that's definitely one of those things about me and him.
Why do you think you guys are so close?
That's a good question. I feel like it's so weird. Like Carter and me, I've never tried to like be Carter. I've always been like I'm myself, but I've just always looked up to him. Like my brother has always been one of my best friends, and I just following him and hanging out with him growing up. It's like whatever he was into, I just thought it was the coolest thing. I'm like, that's my big brother. He's, freaking playing Pokemon, and we're on the GameCube, and he's got his buddies over, and we're playing Smash Bros. And I just always wanted to be there with him. And same thing for Paige too. Even with her friends, they would do like fashion shows, and I just want to be a part of it. I just always wanted to hang out with my siblings because like they were my best friends. And so that was one thing that was always super cool about my siblings growing up, is it was never like a, Ben, get out of my room. Ben, you're annoying me. It was always like, you can come and hang out with us, And so that was always one of the coolest things about growing up with my siblings, is they just always made me feel welcome, just anytime, even when they had their friends over and stuff.
That's cool. I remember I always wanted to hang out with my brother and his friends, but they didn't let me very often.
Oh, no.
They sort of told me to get lost. So
Yeah, there was definitely times when it was like, okay, we're doing, teenager stuff and you need to get out. But, for the most part, like video games and driving four-wheelers. And, I think my brother always stood up for me in that way, and sister as well. So always kind of advocated for me. And I don't know, I just had the same relationships, same friendships with his friends as he did with them. So even to this day, some of my best friends are, my brother's friends, initially. And so it's pretty cool.
that is cool. What are you doing here?
That was me at the summer camp, man. Camp Deerfoot. Deerfoot Brothers. Deerfoot. Man, that was in my first summer of college. So the very first class I ever took at A&M, it was my 8 a.m., my freshman year in my fall semester. It was my first kinesiology class, and it was all about like doing different like exercise testing. So we were doing the like the shuffle run. We did like a mile run. We did a 1.5 mile walk test. It was a super fun class. It was just all about exercise. But my professor for that class, his name is Jordan Zapata, and he's a super cool guy. But one of the big things about him, just from the get-go of getting to know him, was that he was a part of Camp Deerfoot, which is this camp that I worked at. And he would talk about it all the time throughout class, and it was just going along throughout the semester and everything, letting my personality shine through, and especially with the exercise and doing all the tests, I try to be the the hype man for everybody, making sure that it's like, come on, man, like push through, you got this. And so I guess seeing that. One day, it was like towards the end of class time, we were all huddled up, we were about to leave, and he said, Ben, can you, stay after class for me? And this was like at that day, I was like, I don't know, I had like 2 bangs, and I was like off the walls, like my energy was through the roof, and I was like, just like yelling everywhere, and like my energy was just, it was all over the place. And so I thought he was gonna like ask me to stay and tell me that, I need to take it down. I need to, I'm disrupting class, was what I was expecting him to say. But he ended up telling me that he wanted me to come and work for Camp Deerfoot. Apparently, their system, they don't, put a posting. They hire people based on the character of guys that they see in their classrooms. And so it was me along with a couple other kids in their classrooms and some other guys that they knew from camp before, that some of the kids that have been through camp come back as coaches as well. But yeah, he stopped me and said that, no, he feels like I'd be a really good fit to be a coach, to work at Camp Deerfoot. And it felt like an honor to, that he saw my character and thought that, I would be a good leader for some, young boys and the development of young boys. And so that summer was one of the most fun. I had some different age ranges from like 5th grade. So kids from like 5th grade to 8th grade. And so, I mean, it's a wide range. Some of these kids still peed the bed, and then some are like about to go into high school. And so you got to have all of them in your cabin. So, that was one of those summers where it was pretty cool, because these kids, whenever they come to camp, they have to be invited to camp. They don't just go to summer camp for fun. These kids are picked to go to camp, and they don't have to pay for it. So it's kind of, like a charity camp, I guess, is kind of one of those things. And so these kids are sought out for in their classrooms, and so the relationships with the teachers and stuff that the owners of the camp. And so some of these kids are some of the best kids you've ever met in your life, the nicest, most polite, kids that really deserve to come to camp. And then some are some of the most like misbehaving, like heathens
like
that
those
you've
ones.
ever met. And so that's what camp was about, is to help structure these kids. They had to start in at 5th grade, and then from there, as long as they did what they're supposed to at camp, they got invited back each summer. And so once these kids got to the last summer of camp and become gray shirts and graduate from the camp, these kids get enrolled into a program where the camp will pay up to like 90-something% of these kids' college tuition, so these kids can go to college. Because probably over half for sure of these kids aren't going to go to college in the first place. And so this camp helps give like those kids structure and goal and motivation to work hard in high school and to get into college, because that way the money factor is not one of those issues. And so, man, I really saw a lot of change in a lot of these kids from the beginning to the end. And so I got 2 different rounds. I had one full round, because this isn't just like a 1-week camp. Like, these kids I'm with them for 3+ weeks at a time. And so you really get to build strong connections with these kids, which is pretty cool.
Let me put this in Do Not Disturb real quick. My apologies.
All good. But yeah, that was a moment whenever we do tons of competitions throughout the whole thing. We even draft the kids, which is pretty cool. At the very beginning of camp, you get to meet the kids for like the first week, and then by the second week, or like towards the end of the first week, us coaches would have draft night. And so you would have to pick a kid's name. We got to like go in turns. You got to pick kids' names and put them on your team. And then from there, you get to compete with the other teams. And you're doing like baseball, kickball, handball, which is what one of the professors that invented the sport. And so it was a really cool thing. So.
What was your criteria when you were thinking about which kids you wanted to pick? What was sort of going through your head?
So I definitely just from watching them and seeing them compete in some of the other like early sports and things, I definitely knew which kids were fast. I knew which kids were strong, but I also knew which kids could work together. And so the first round, you get to have a team with like the 5th and 6th grade kids, and then get to compete with like the younger kids. And then the following round of coaching at the next camp, I got to be with the 7th and 8th graders. And so I ended up getting like second place on my first try with the team, but then my second team we ended up winning there's like 4 different championships, and so we ended up getting first place in the baseball, and my kids were like super ecstatic about being first, and work with the older kids and everything, and so just getting to see them work together was pretty cool. I never have seen myself, this camp is really good for the guys that are wanting to go into coaching, that want to become coaches one day. And so it wasn't something I've ever really thought about doing, but I do feel like I fit that role pretty well.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I got my first job on accident. My car was broken, and there is a new gym being built. And my friend said, "Hey, I want to go." He was driving me to school, and he said, "I want to go apply for a job. Do you mind if we stop by?" And I said, "Of course not. Let's stop by." So he's filling out an application. This is back in the day we did that on paper. And the manager walks over, and she's like, "Are you signing up for a membership?" And I said, "No." And she said, "Do you have a job?" And I said, "No." And she says, "Here you go." Hands me an application. I fill it out. Ended up getting hired in the daycare. And my specialty, and why I was excited to meet Bennett, was the infants. There's something about the parents. Literally, we would give out my schedule because they would base their gym visits around when I was working, because with all the other employees, the kids would just scream their heads off, but for some reason when I was holding them, they would just fall asleep. So I got paid to sit in a rocking chair and hold babies, and
You had the magic touch. Yeah, that's so cool, man. That's a dream job for sure.
Yeah, dude, I didn't have to do anything. I literally just sat there.
Really?
Yeah.
Man, that's cool. That's so cool.
All right, I'm going to try something I haven't tried before because I have an unusually amount of pictures of you, more so than I typically have for my guests. So I'm just going to show you all of these at the same time.
Okay. There we go. Yep. That's a big one. Oh, my goodness.
So, going back to the first question and seeing all these different versions of you, who are you?
Man, now you hit me with it. Now you hit me with the question. Man, that's something that just continue to try to figure out every day, honestly. I'm a son, I'm first and foremost, I am a child of God. I am a believer in Christ, and I am a disciple of the Lord. But second of all, I'm a son, I'm a brother to some amazing people, some of the best people. And then, third, now I'm a father. And that's crazy. With how fast life has progressed, honestly. But those are from middle school, high school, sports in high school and all the things, at the time it feels like that's everything, going through and playing football, that was such a big part of my life. To now you see the photo there is me and Jimbo Fisher, him handing me my Aggie ring. Working for the football team at A&M, that was probably one of the coolest jobs I've ever had. That I super glad I got that opportunity. It was funny how I ended up getting the job. I ended up going to like a party one time, and I'm getting off on a loop here. That's my my ADHD spinning around.
That happens when you're doing this. Yeah. It's good.
But I'd like to say I'm patient. I'm caring. I'm loving. I am, don't know a stranger. Make sure I try to, just share love to others. That's one thing that I've really appreciated about working in the hospital system, and is getting to meet people and just try to be, a bright part of their day, and a smile, and a laugh. And so I think that's one of those things that I try to be of who I am, is just you know, a strong Christian, and try to be a disciplined man. It's a hard thing. I feel like nowadays there's a lot of temptation, a lot of things out in the world right now, and you know, discipline in men, I feel like, is, you know, coming more and more slim, and so that's one of those things that I feel that, you know, I try to work really hard at, is being disciplined. Like I was telling you earlier, one of the very difficult things that I did was whenever Caitlin got pregnant, she, you know, one of the ways I wanted to support her was by not drinking any alcohol, and because, you know, she, you know, bartends, and she, like, that's one of, like, her favorite things is, you know, like a fun drink, and so, you know, that's one of those things that, like, she loves to do, and so, you know, it's kind of just showing her and telling her that, like, I'm, you know, supporting you in this way, and you know, giving up nicotine and all the other things that are super addictive. And so, definitely it's not easy because it's everywhere, but that's one of the ways that I feel like that has helped strengthen me and to become, you know, more disciplined, and especially having Bennett too. It's you have to practice patience a lot as well, and consistency. So.
Yeah, that was one thing that Carter mentioned that he really admires about you is he mentioned, where did it go? Where did it go? Maybe I just made it up. I know we talked about it. Why would I not jot it down? Essentially, when Kate was pregnant, there was some sort of family get together, and you went, and she wasn't able to for one reason or another. And because you were almost on a vacation of sorts, you could have technically drank if you wanted to, and everyone else was, and you didn't. And he said that resilience and that discipline that he saw in you really impressed him.
Yeah, it's thank you, Carter. um,
How does that sit with you?
yeah, I mean, it's hard because, you know, that vacation was a trip that we had planned for when my dad was going to be cancer free, and so um, that was one of those things where, you know, it felt like whenever I was there, that, like, the whole point was to celebrate and to have fun, but at the same time, it's hard whenever, you know, not being with Kate, and, you know, it's pretty hard. It was very hard to leave Kate, and I know that it was not something that was super appreciated, as far as, like, you know, it was Christmas time. We went to Hawaii, and so, I mean, that it's one of those things where, you know, you're in Hawaii, you know, at one point, but trying to just remind yourselves that, like, you know, there's some things that are bigger than that, and obviously it's not forever either. You know, it's for a short time. So that was one of those things. But yeah, man, I don't even know what should we dive into with the rest of these photos here.
Something shifting in our culture that I've noticed is people seem to be going back to spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
I say that specifically, not Christianity, but people seem to be looking for something to believe in.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you believe in God? You can't see him. You technically don't really have any evidence that he exists. And I'm asking this out of true curiosity and respectfulness.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because, you know, I was raised in the church and I left, because it seemed to just be a set of rules that my father weaponized to get his way.
Mm-hmm.
How do you believe in God?
That's a great question. You know, I think it really comes down to, so I like you kind of mentioned before, you know, we grew up in the church, and that was obviously something that your parents took you to, and we would every summer, me and my siblings, we would go to Bridgeport church camp, and so, you know, that's just all the fun and everything. But there's definitely, I think there's so many moments that I found God each summer I'd go to church camp. There's been a lot of things I've done very wrong in my life. One of those being, sneaking out of the house multiple times, like as a high schooler, schooler.
Yeah.
And that was,
Sorry, I just love that. I just learned that about you. That's so cool.
I know, because that's one of those things is I like, definitely images, but, going to church camp and it's one of those, it's really comes down to that feeling of whenever like you talk to God, whenever you feel God, like, and so like I remember my friend Coleman one summer, and we were young, we were probably in 6th grade, we were very young, but we have open mic night at Bridgeport, and one of those times, just the kids get to go up and share, whether it's something that they learned at camp, the way that God touched them. But one thing my friend said was like, looking out, we're on the top of this hill, and then in front of us we have the Bridgeport Cross, which is like an icon, but behind it is where the city is, and so there's a big lake, and then there's city, and this is late at night, and so the whole like skyline is kind of just like covered with like lights. And something that he said, he just walked up there. He's, my friend, especially growing up, he was one of those guys that like, he kept to himself. He was pretty quiet. His name's Coleman, by the way. And he ended up going up to the mic, and he said, I look out on the skyline and I see those lights, and it's like just city lights. And he says, each one of those lights remind me that there's Christians coming to Christ each day. And that's what that visual reminded him. And I'm just never forget him saying that, because, here's my friend who like I could never see like speaking out in front of, hundreds of people. And so, that was one of the summers where the way that I felt, it's like this weight that just automatically like it surrounds you and like just hugs you. And I've been lucky enough to say that like I've felt that so many times from the things I've gone through. Obviously we've kind of hinted at it before, but going into my last year of college, I'll never forget, I was at a concert with my friends, and they're all in a band in college named Dempsey, and so they were a rock band, and I was always their number one fan. I loved going and supporting them. I tried to be at every concert, and they'd be like, all the words that like we don't even have it on Spotify yet, and like the words to the songs, because like I would go and support them like that. And I remember getting a call, and I saw it was from my dad, and I like walked out, and then I remember like picking up the phone, answering the phone, and this was in like October, and this was my last year, so it would have been 2024, or this 2023 of like the fall. And he just said, before it even came out of his mouth, like I just felt like the weight of the world drop. It was just like, Ben, I have cancer. And I just remember like hearing that, and like before it even came out, it was just like I just like the world, like everything got quiet. Like I was like outside, there's cars passing me, and it was just quiet, and it was just, I have cancer. And like automatically all the like thoughts go through your head of like, the worst thoughts to the best thoughts to, okay, it's not that bad, it's, but him just telling me that just really just shook up your world. Like you automatically think like, okay, my dad's not gonna make it, versus like, hey, oh, it's fine, you just found out. But by the time that we figured it out, it was already stage 4, and already went from his gallbladder to his liver. And so finding out, and so he started his treatments, and luckily it was since it was in the fall, I was able to help take my dad to a lot of his different chemo appointments, and it was like Christmas time, and getting him better, and just seeing the way that it changed. You can see from early on stages to obviously the photos towards the end, just how weak and frail that he got. But it was he kept on fighting, but it ended up getting down to where he got sick, and so he ended up getting in pneumonia and then having to be in the hospital. But his body from the treatments were just so weak that like he just really couldn't, he just couldn't fight it, just because he didn't have much left, much body left to fight. And but throughout the entire thing, it's just like my dad was him, and like just all there, all personality, all smiles, which is it's just very difficult. But one of the things that helped strengthen my belief in God was that on my dad's very last day on this earth, he kept on looking into the corner of the hospital room, and we just like noticed like he kept on looking up, and we were like, Dad, like, who are you looking at? Like, do you see somebody? Is somebody there? And at this point, he had to end up being intubated. And so it came down to, my dad could either have a rescue surgery where like he only had a 10% chance of living, or we can just let him go peacefully and take him off of life support. And so we just decided as a family that the best thing was to, let him go peacefully. And so they took the tubes out, but from that he wasn't able to talk. And so he would have to, shake his head up and down. And so we ended up getting him a whiteboard, and that way he could he could still spell words to us and communicate to us through that way. And he wrote down on the whiteboard, Mom. And we're like, Mom? Like, my mom, Amy, your wife? And he's like, no, just shaking his head. And then he wrote down Pat. And so Mom, Pat, that was his grandmother. And so that would have been my great-grandmother. And he said that he saw her in the corner of the room. And Carter had already been kind of reading up on, he's read some stuff before about, kind of like heaven coming and seeing us on earth. And, my brother's describing her as like a ball of light, a ball of energy, something that you really can't explain. But the way that he was describing to my dad, like his eyes lit up, and his eyes, like he's just shaking his head. He's like, yep, like telling us like that's what it is. And he's like, it's her. And like throughout the whole time on his last day, asking him all the questions, like, are you scared? Are you ready to go? And he just like no fear in his eyes, just smiling, just happy. Like it's crazy that he, was 100% content with knowing that like that's his last day, and that he's just happy that his family's there, and that he has his grandma there with his hand open waiting to take him. And so we got to spend that whole last day just singing his favorite songs. That's one of the things that our family would do is, my brother played guitar, and I picked it up a little bit so I could play with him, and we would sing songs together. And so we just got to sing songs and hold his hand, and we ended up taking him off life support, and it was early in the morning. I have the time written down, but it was March 7th when he passed away. And that was right in the week of when he had his funeral. Was my spring break for my last semester of college. And so, beach trip, whatever, is all, kind of out of the picture. But through that experience, it's crazy because, I felt God throughout that whole time. I was never scared. I never once cursed God. I never, said, why do you do this? Like, I just always had that piece of, I know where my dad's going. And that's what I believe in, is I believe in a God, and I believe that he is our Father who is in heaven and who's going to take us, that we have, the eternal gift of life once we die. And that's, what helps keep me going. That's what is the most important thing to me. And so throughout an experience like that, just not, I definitely, it was rough after, don't get me wrong, but the love and the warmth and the peace that I felt throughout that experience, like, it did nothing, I thought it was going to hurt my relationship with God, but it only made it stronger.
Thank you for sharing all that.
Of course.
Is that difficult to share? I imagine this doesn't come up in daily conversation very often.
No, it doesn't. I rarely get to share it with people, and I try to share it, maybe not in full detail, but kind of share who my dad was, and my story and my experience, my testimony, with others when I can, when I get the opportunity, because I do feel like that's one of the blessings that I have is I get to share such an amazing story with others that maybe it could be just that little bit that helps people, think about church and think about Christ. And, like you said, I think that a lot of people do have, are spiritual in a way. Not everybody, is all about going to church and, that whole thing. But, just having, the belief in a creator and that there's someone out there and there's something to believe in, is one of those things that I'm just happy I get to share that, and I try to share that with the people that I see in the hospital that are, going through such tough times, and people that also have similar stories to mine. Cancer has taken so many people. Some people have some amazing stories of where they fought it, and they stood over cancer's face, doing John Cena, like, you can't touch me, you can't see me. I wish that was my story, but God had a different plan for me, and so that's part of who I am today is that experience of my dad. And so I'm just blessed that, like, I have the story to tell, and this experience that has strengthened me, and helped strengthen me to become who I am.
I have a hard-hitting question for you, but before I ask, I have something else I'm going to read you. Ben, being your big sister has always felt a little different than just having a sibling. You were never really my partner in crime growing up the way Carter and I were. You were my baby. I think part of me will probably always see you that way. Since you were born, I've had an instinct to protect you, guide you, and honestly, probably overmanage you sometimes. From the very beginning, all you ever wanted was to make the people you loved happy. The biggest heart of anyone I know. You love deeply, fully, and without hesitation. Throughout your life, you've shown that you would do anything for the people you care about, and that's one of the things I've always admired most about you. I know life hasn't unfolded the way any of us pictured these last few years. Losing Dad changed all of us, and I think in some ways it forced you to grow up faster than anyone realized. Even through the hardest moments, you've always had a way of putting on a brave face and continuing to show up for the people you love. Watching you step into this new chapter of your life, I see how hard you try every day to be a good man, a good partner, a good father, a good son, and a good brother. And I hope you always give yourself enough credit for that. Being needed by people and showing up for them the way you do is not a small thing. I hope you know how proud I am of the heart that you have. No matter how much life changes, I will always be in your corner. I love you endlessly. I always will. Paige.
Thank you, Paige. Thank you for making me cry. I love my family. I love my family so much. Man, it's hard to be sad when you still have so much. I have so much more than money could ever buy with my family. I'm so blessed to have my siblings and to have an amazing partner and to have an amazing son and have, you know, my number one upstairs watching me and getting to see every bit of it is pretty amazing.
I asked Carter, if life is a book and each day is a page in our story, what's one of the most important pages in your story that would add a lot of context to who you are? And he told me about a time that you came to him with a secret.
I wait, did he tell you the secret?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. Is it the secret of
Bennett.
Bennett? Okay, that's what I thought. I was making sure that's where the story came.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So to help lay the storyline of everything. So after losing my father, I was blessed I got to stay home and be with my mom and help take care of her and just live with her and spend Christmas time with her and just make sure after, such a crazy thing that I got to be with her, which was amazing. But I know at that point I also felt like I was, like, what am I doing? Like, I'm still at home and I don't have, a job yet. I don't have it lined up. I originally had an internship, but ended up not getting chosen for their, grad program. But, luckily I got blessed that the original internship I was going to go to before that one called me and said, hey, we have a job if you want to interview for it. And luckily it was in Kyle, which is right next to where my brother lives. And so ended up applying and, got called back the next day and finally started working. First job out of college, trying to figure out what life is and being an adult. And luckily I got to spend that time with Carter and Shelby and them taking me into their home was just such a blessing that I had family there in this new chapter of life. But then I ended up getting my own apartment, getting my own place. And then not shortly after, ended up meeting Caitlin, my girlfriend. And through that experience, life, obviously, it wasn't very long after meeting her that Bennett decided to say, hey, I'm on the way. And so I remember me and Caitlin that night, we ended up, we just hung out with her brother and, we would always make jokes about what if this, what if that. And then I remember that night and when she took the pregnancy test and whenever it came back positive, I just automatically it wasn't an automatic holy crap. It was just okay, this is happening. You're pregnant. We're going to have a child on the way. And I just remember after some of the initial nerves calmed down, I had to go and take my dog Mally for a walk. And I just remember walking her and I was like, man, just looking up at the sky and just being okay, God, this is this is the new chapter of life you want to unfold on me first. I I wasn't even at my job for a full year before I find out that I'm going to be a dad. And I remember, again, just that peace, that presence of God being this is what I've chosen for you. And that was one of the craziest things of okay, first this, now that. And, obviously there's a lot more we could talk about as far as a lot of the growing pains of, being present, how I need to be as a future father for Caitlin while she's pregnant, and the sacrifices. But I remember we ended up, you know, it was about a month and a half in. We ended up finding out at like the very end of like May, and it was June 30th whenever we found out, or whenever we ended up telling everybody. And so, of course, me and Kate told Carter and Shelby first, because Carter has always been kind of, being my brother, and him being like the closest to me, and the one I get to see the most frequently. I just, told him first because I knew his reaction. He was the reaction I was the least scared about.
Yeah.
And just knowing that, like, he was just very supportive in every way. And I remember the next day, so it was that night, we were all back at the house, back at the farm in Honey Grove. And it was actually my sister's birthday, June 30th. And I remember telling my mom, it was just me and Caitlin, and we brought her out. We weren't even sure if we were going to tell her or not, but, we just decided that the best thing to do was to tell her. And the first thing my mom did was just start tearing up. And she was just like, I'm going to be a grandma. And there's just so much emotion that goes into it, with knowing, my dad is a grandpa as well. And so my dad was going to be Grand Jack, and my dad's name is Jack, and so Grand Jack, and my mom's name is Amy, so her grandma name is Grammy. And so that was picked out by the dogs, by her grand dogs. And my mom shared a story with me and Caitlin about how the previous time in October, her and some of her friends went to go see a tarot card reader. And so towards the end of the session with the tarot card reader, she asked her, okay, let's get down to the nitty gritty. Am I going to have any grandchildren soon? And the tarot card reader told her that you would have news by June. And me and Caitlin had not heard that story. I had no idea that my mom had gone to see a tarot card reader, and that she told her she was going to have grandkids soon, and this and that. And crazy enough, it was the very last day in June 30th, that we told my mom. And so that kind of helped make her, made her happy, because her tarot card reader, actually was right. So that was a pretty crazy experience. And I remember telling Paige we got some like little baby socks and stuff when you put it into a gift basket for her birthday gift. And I remember she opened it, and it was just us three, me, Caitlin, and her in the room, and took her a second, and she was just like, oh my God, like, this is happening. And it was like, yep, like, you're going to become an aunt. And we showed Gabe, my sister's husband, and he thought the socks were for the dogs. He was like, oh, cool, these are for like Oni. He thought that we got baby socks for the dogs. And I remember he was like, oh crap. Like, and even, through that experience, it was, pretty crazy. But fast forward, now it's getting closer and closer to game time. And we were supposed to, Bennett's due date was March 1st. And he ended up coming, he was over his due date. And so it was Sunday night. We just went to Longhorn Steakhouse, had ourselves a nice meal where, like, food is apparently supposed to be good at releasing oxytocin, and oxytocin is supposed to help, like, your pregnancy and make you more likely to go into labor. And so we're like, maybe, if we eat some good food, it'll help bring Bennett out. And so we went and ate at Longhorn Steakhouse, loaded baked potato, steak. Mm-hmm. We even got the molten lava cake. We're like, screw it, let's just do this. And so I remember we just were there, sitting there, eating, and we're like, man, if this was our last meal as, not parents, like, we would be totally content. And sure enough, 4 a.m. the next morning, Kate's already having contractions, like, within 10 minutes of each other. And it's like, crap, we got to go to the hospital. And so we get there, and Kate she's having these contractions are just like coming on quick and they're serious. And they checked her. She was like 3 centimeters dilated. So they said they'd give us a room, an active labor room, but it'd probably be a while. And so they get us into a room. We finally get to speak with the doctor. And the doctor tells her that she's only about 4 centimeters dilated and that it'd still be a while before it was actual active labor time. So they leave the room. But Kate is having like back-to-back contractions on top of each other. Like I've never seen her in so much pain. And that's one of the most amazing things about Caitlin is like the strength and that getting to be there and hold her hand and support her through that is just the most amazing thing because she wanted to do an unmedicated birth. And so we opted out of the epidural. But that doctor, she was in some pain, but the doctor told her that there's no trophy for going unmedicated, which kind of, pissed her off because she's like, why can't you support me in this way? And like almost like wanting her to get it. And so they left the room, they went for lunch, and it was probably like 30 minutes later, Kate was like involuntarily pushing. And she was like, Ben, like you need to get someone into the room. Like she couldn't even speak. And so I ended up having to call the charge nurse in. It was the only person available because our nurses had just went to lunch. And she came in, she's like, okay, honey, let's go and let's check and see how dilated you are. And so she goes down and she's like, okay, baby's head is right here. She said, you can push and hopefully your water will break and we're going to have a baby, or we can break your water for you and you can push and we're going to have a baby. And so it was probably like 10 minutes, 15 minutes after that, Caitlin got him out in 3 pushes, and it was just the craziest experience because like I'm all focused on Kate's face, trying to be there, comfort her, and I'm looking down at her, and then I look up, and like it's a completely different room. Like I felt like we like literally went from one room to the next because there was like 20 people. They had multiple tables set up. They had everyone wearing gowns, people in the back wearing hazmat suits. Like it was the craziest thing. I was like, this is like what's going on, man. Like my adrenaline was through the roof. And I just remember like going down there at the end. Like there was a moment that me and Kate like to talk about where like she gets to the point like right before she gets him out where she's like, I can't do this. And the charge nurse literally grabs her face and she's like yelling at her like, Caitlin, yes, you can. And it's like all primal and it's crazy. And I just remember going down there and then watching the doctor catch him, and then they get him up and it's just like silent and everyone just goes quiet. And then out of nowhere, you just hear like just the most amazing cry like you've ever heard. And like I couldn't stop. Like the tears like started pouring out of us. Like that first cry like is something I'm never gonna forget. Like I couldn't, every single emotion was like pouring out of me. Like the same way that like I got to say goodbye to my dad was the way that I got to greet my son into the world. Like it was the like tears of joy that we had. And crazy enough, my dad passed away March 7th. Bennett was born on March 9th, so 2 days later. So I'm glad he gave us a couple of days of grief. So now we could celebrate him. And I just remember, in that moment that it, life just was not going to be the same after that. And now I'm taking care of, I'm wiping, cleaning dirty diapers and, making bottles and getting up in the middle of the night. And it's crazy because I thought it would be like more difficult, but like just having him, I mean, don't worry, like don't get me wrong, there's so many nights where like it is hard to get up, it's hard to make a bottle, to be patient. That's one of the biggest things I think I've learned from being a dad and having a newborn is the patience and learning that like you and like what you need, obviously you need to take care of yourself, but you are the least important person, like taking care of Bennett, like that, taking care of Bennett, taking care of Caitlin, like those are your 2 main goals. Like that's all that matters, is like being present and doing what you need to for them and being patient, and just trying to be consistent every time. whether it's coming home from work and taking over, or taking the first shift at night, and you know, helping soothe him and sing to him. There's just been so much that I've learned through that so far. So
You guys had a little bit of a scare right after he was born, correct?
that is correct. Yeah, yeah. I almost wasn't even talking about that.
You don't have to if you don't want to.
Oh no, it's fine. My mouth's just getting dry. So, it was 3 days after we were about to leave the hospital and take Bennett home finally, and the doctor came in. Bennett had already missed one feeding that day, and it was time for him to eat. And so he finally woke up, and we were just about to feed him when the doctor came in and said that, we wanted to go ahead and do his circ procedure. And so we're like, well, can we feed him real quick before you take him back? And he's like, well, typically we want the child to be on an empty stomach before his procedure. That way, he doesn't spit up on himself or throw up. And we're like, okay, that's understandable. But he told us he'd be back in 10 minutes to take him. And he proceeded to not come for another hour and a half. And so we're like, what the hell? Like, we could have fed him, and then he would have been good for go time. And so at this point, Bennett had already missed like multiple feedings. And so after their little boy's circ procedures, they're like super sleepy. And so he had not eaten, and he had just been sleeping. And we got him home, and like we were trying to wake him up. And it's like, okay, like we're home, like it's time to eat. And like he could not stay awake. He was just like super lethargic, like was not acting like himself at all. It was the scariest thing. So we checked his temperature and saw that it was super low for what it should have been. And like we couldn't get him to eat anything. And so we just like, our instinct was like, let's go back to the hospital. Let's go to the ER because this is like not okay. And so they check his temperature, and he drops to like 96.4, which is like super low for a baby. And then check his blood sugar, and it's 41, like dropped like critically low. And so they ended up admitting him into the NICU, where he spent 3 nights. And it was like the saddest thing in the world, because he had, we have our little son, and we just want to just play with him, and he has to be in his little, hospital bed, and they have an IV first through his wrist, and then they put it through his foot. And so they have to like give him sugar water to like get his sugar up and get him stabilized. And he's finally started acting like himself again. And that was really good for us, because it helped like teach us like we got into a good routine of feeding habits. And we learned a lot from getting to talk to the nurses. But at that time, I remember like Kate was, she was a wreck, and like I wanted to do nothing but be with her in that or like also be in the trenches. But I just remember being like, I can't act weak right now. I gotta keep that positive attitude, like everything's okay. But like in the moment, it feels like what's wrong with our baby, like is he at danger? Because they also didn't do a great job of explaining that he's everything's fine, he's gonna be okay. Like they just were like, they just can't tell you anything, and so you're just like, we just had our son, and like, are we gonna lose him, kind of thing. And it was super scary. But luckily we figured out we just needed to help supplement like with his blood sugars. He just wouldn't stay stable with his blood sugars, and so supplementing with formula really helped that. And we finally got him at a very good stable level, and got to take him home, and he's been growing good ever since. So I'm super blessed with how well that he is as a baby. He is like the most chill dude on earth. I freaking love him to death. Me and Kate, we call him Stinker, Stinky. We call him Little Man, Bennett Boy, Baby Boy. He is like the most smiley baby you've ever seen. Like every photo of him, like I have millions of photos of him just smiling. Like he shouldn't even be smiling at this age. Like I don't even have my phone on me, but he has always just been like a super like bright-eyed, like just happy little guy. And so it's just like a blessing that like it's like is this my reward for everything I've been through, or you know, and so just him being the first grandson and everything is it's pretty cool. So
I was telling Carter, I forget what he said specifically, but they had said, what was it? Did I write it down? There is some comment he made about something that him and Paige had spoken about over you when you were younger. And I remember I made a joke with him. I was like, so it's your fault that Ben has a kid. Like, they manifested it almost.
yeah.
Do you know what he may have referenced? Something about, like, how you were the first one that was going to have a kid or
Yeah.
something like that. And I was just like, you're to blame, Carter. There's a reason why Ben is the first person with a grandchild in the family.
They they always that was just like the running joke of the like I was the running joke of the family is that everyone made the joke that I was gonna be the first one to have kids, you know, because they all thought that like Carter being the oldest and being married the longest, that you know obviously he should be the first one to have kids, but you know that was kind of always the running joke is that Ben might be the first one to have kids.
Yeah, you talked about too about how when you were a young fellow, you'd be like writing love poems to other girls, and then their parents would be reaching out to your parents and be like, "What's going on here? Should we be worried about this?" why,
I,
why?
don't, I didn't think Carter would tell you that.
You talked for
No.
a solid 45 minutes, I think. If memory serves me right.
Yeah, well that's good. Yeah, yeah. I just always growing up, I was always like the romantic. You know, that was just kind of part of like who I am. Is I'm very, you know, I care deeply, and whether I'm in elementary school or middle school, whether it's like a crush or a girlfriend, you know, I've always tried to be very, you know, just thought out and very big emotions when it comes to things like that and romance and love. And so I think that's part of what he's also referencing is, you know, I Valentine's Days and things like that, I always try to go, you know, big. So
That's
I
cool.
can see why. But yeah, I can't believe he said that.
He told me that in high school you asked your dad a couple of times how much it would cost to raise a family, what it was like raising a family in a small town, what career options would you have if you started a family young, and you always wanted to skip to the part to where you could start your own family.
Yeah, I feel like I've always, I mean, that's kind of my goal. One of the, you know, I tell people or told people before that one of the main goals I've ever set for myself in life is to be a good dad. Like, that's something that I've always wanted to be and that um, I've always looked forward to. Growing, you know, not just growing up, but in college, I've always kind of been the dad of the friend group. You know, would have the one I bought a grill, and I'd have like family feasts on Sundays in college. So I'd have my buddies over, and I'd grill steaks, pork chops. I would make cowboy beans. One time, my buddy brought over some alligator meat, and we did fried alligator nuggets, and I made red beans and rice with the sausage and cornbread and all. So I've just always kind of seen myself as the dad of the friend group, and always seen myself just super excited to get to the point where I got to be a father. It came a lot faster than I thought I would than it would, but you know, I think I probably manifested it a little bit for myself, but just the fact that you know, I do feel that you know, whether it's my dad upstairs playing the strings and thinking it's funny for me to be the first one with the child, or whether it's God deciding that, hey, like this is, you know, your time and you're ready for this, and this is what I want to do in your life. I don't know how it works necessarily, but I do know I'm super blessed and I'm a super proud father. So no matter what age I am, I'm just glad that I have a job, that I have family around me, that I have some money in the bank, that I have an amazing partner in Caitlin, and I'm just super happy that I have such a fun stage of life right now. Like, I don't think I've been this is just a different type of happiness that I've never experienced before. And so I'm just super glad that, I'm happy I get to, share that with you as well. So.
Yeah. Yeah. No, thank you for being here and for everything you've shared. I think a lot of people are scared for the future right now. And so being able to sit down with someone and just see your excitement and your hope and just how you reacted to your father's passing and your son's birth and just everything that you've shared, I think it's good just to I'm excited to put this on the internet and inject some hope into people, hopefully.
Well, thank you for saying that. I hope the same thing. That's one of the big reasons why I wanted to come on this podcast is I just feel that I have so much to share with people, and hopefully somebody gets something from something I've said. something.
Something. Yeah. So. Well, we have one more topic, but before we jump into it, I'm going to play you something.
Okay.
Growing up with Ben never really felt like having a little brother. It felt like having a built-in best friend. Even with 6 years between us, he was always down to hang out, have fun, and make any situation better just by being there. He's athletic, loving, and the kind of person who naturally hypes up everyone around him. People are drawn to him because he makes them seem filled and valued. What I've always admired most about Ben is that he's the kind of guy who just does what needs to be done. From running laps around the house as a kid to cleaning my room for a shiny penny, he's always shown up with a good attitude and a big heart. Honestly, he's always been the little brother that made me want to be a better, bigger brother. And watching him become a father has only made those qualities stand out even more. The love, loyalty, and care he's always shown to others now pours into his family too. I've always been proud of him, but seeing the man and dad he's become makes me even prouder to call him my brother. Ben, the way you've always looked up to me has pushed me to hold myself to a higher standard too. The way you care for the people in your life, show up for others, and carry yourself with so much love and integrity makes it obvious that you're going to do great things. I'm so proud of the man you've become. Just keep on being who you are and keep on making Dad and Granddad smile from heaven. I love you so much.
Whew. This is David's Saturday night cry show. Sit back and cry your eyes out and show.
The last person I had on, he asked me, he said, so do you just emotionally ambush everyone that comes on your show? This big, strong MMA fighter, and he's just crying at the letter that is, who was it, his mom? Yeah, I think it was his mom wrote him that, and he was just like, my God, dude.
Oh, my goodness. Man. Thank you so much. Thank you for this.
That was a very powerful reaction you had to seeing that.
Yep. It wasn't, it's not just my brother's words, but, I don't know how it works upstairs, but I sure do know when my dad's present, when my grandma's there. And that was definitely one of those moments where I can feel them, and that's one thing that, like I was kind of been telling you about is, being a Christian, and that's what I believe in is the just that I can feel love from all over, no matter if they're here or not, and not just him, from God too, and yeah, definitely emotions are very big when it comes to my family. So, family and faith, just the most important things, and food. I don't know if Carter's mentioned that or not, but food's another big one. I sure do love to eat. But, yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm just going to sit back on this one.
How do you feel?
Joy. I mean, happiness. There's so much that you go through.
Sorry.
you can
Small space.
we can hold feet. It's okay.
Thank you.
We can both cry. Yeah, I'm someone that I do, I've always enjoyed a good cry. I think our emotions are one of those things that makes us human, and it just having powerful emotions, whether it's happy, sad, happy and sad together. I'm just kind of in shock. There's a lot to process as far as hearing my story in the way that you've set it up and kind of narrated it through my family and the most important people in my life. And I it's easy to, life is so busy right now, and things have happened so quickly, and I getting to just sit back and kind of think upon those things and get to really think in detail about my story and hear it again. It's just a feeling of like I've been through so much, but I'm here and I'm happy as I could be. I'm just so content. I'm so filled with the love of others, the love of the Lord, love of my son and of Caitlin, my family. I love you guys. I love y'all so much. Y'all are my everything, and I'm just blessed to be here. Every day above ground is a good day. So
Why'd you say yes to coming on the show?
good question. I cried a lot. Maybe I should have said no. I felt like one of the biggest reasons why I said yes is because I just had the opportunity to share my testimony with others and be a part of something and do something that, I won't lie, I was a little nervous at first.
Yes, you were. You were very nervous.
And ultimately I felt like this is something I needed to do, that I don't think things happen for a reason. I think that you coming and reaching out to me and us talking, and it was a little bit of a process to finally get to meet together, but I don't think things don't just happen for a reason, and so I just felt like ultimately this is one of those side quests in my life that I get to share, and I feel like you have helped re-strengthen things in me that sometimes are easy to forget, from the mistakes I've made, not only in my relationships, but just in all aspects of my life. Getting to hear those kind words from my family and through you just help, kind of just ground grow the foundation of who I am and why I'm here. And so just I'm really appreciative of what you've done and the work you put on into this, and getting all the input from my family members. And I appreciate the time that you took to, you really stroke a string in my heart. So I really appreciate that.
Of course. Well, I'm glad you said yes. One of my biggest frustrations is I went to a gym I don't normally go to. My buddy asked me, he's like, hey, you want to go check out this gym this week? And I said, sure. And we ended up talking to one of the personal trainers there who's from my hometown of Sacramento, California.
That's crazy.
And so we talked for a solid 45 minutes. And at the end of it, I said, hey, do you want to come on the podcast? And he said, no. He said, I appreciate the offer, but I'm not worthy. I don't have what you're looking for. And I said, you do. I see it. And I want to give you this gift because you're going to see your confidence level up by the end of this thing. It's happened with every single person that has come on the show. And I want him to see, and man, I've invited 65 people on the show in the last 3 days. And of those 65, I think 2 have said yes. I wonder how many people are like Ian, where they think that for one reason or another, they're not good enough. There's even when you saw that letter, undeniably there's a presence in the room with us, and I want people to be able to experience whatever that thing is, and leave that door having a newfound belief in themselves. And so thank you. I will sum this up by saying thank you for being brave enough to say yes. Because I do dig into, I get it, man. I'm talking with your family members. I'm Googling you. I do a lot of research into your personal life, and you're making yourself very vulnerable to someone you don't know. And I get that that's scary, and maybe that's why some people don't come on too, is because maybe they tune into an episode and they're like, "Whoa, I'm not giving this guy my brother's number."
Yeah.
And some people actually, when they see the guest form, I've got emails back from people that said, "You know what? I changed my mind. I'm good."
Really? Yeah.
So I really appreciate that you came on here, because I get that it is intimidating considering the vetting process I put you through. So thank you.
Well, I appreciate, I think that it's done nothing but, strengthen this podcast. And I think that what you're doing is amazing. And do you mind if I pray for you?
Sure.
For you in this podcast?
Yeah.
Dear Lord, thank you for just such an amazing experience, getting to sit with my brother here, David. Lord, thank you for what you continually do, for giving us this opportunity, this platform to share my story, to share your love, Lord. Lord, I just want to pray for David and for his podcast, for the mission that he is trying to live out through his podcast, for what he's trying to do for others, Lord. I just pray that you continually fill him with your love, Lord. Fill him with the resilience and the courage to continue to just grow his podcast. And I just pray that you work through him. Lord, thank you for this just time to just sit back and have a laugh, and for your wonderful green earth and for the sun shining on our faces, Lord. We're just so grateful for all that we have here. May you continually work through us, and may we go out and do your work, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you, Ben.
Got it, David.
I have a fun topic for us to end on.
Okay.
When we were on the phone, you mentioned that you and Kate have been watching Love is Blind.
That is very true.
And you brought up something that we may respectfully disagree on.
Okay.
If memory serves me right, you mentioned that when choosing a potential partner, you don't think that looks should be taken into consideration. Does it sound accurate? I'm trying not to mince your words. That phone call was about a month ago, so.
Yeah. No, I'm trying to remember it as well.
And I think I mentioned to you on the phone that for me, that's definitely like in my top 5 criteria. Like if looks aren't there, what are we even doing here? Let's just move on with our day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that true?
I I'd say that that's accurate from that phone conversation. Um, my take on it, I think, there's a lot of ways that can be taken. Um, I do feel that, like, don't get me wrong, I do very much agree that there needs to be a certain level of attractiveness to each other in the physical aspect. Um, as far as, you know, comfortability, being around the person, when it comes to that aspect. I think the reason why I said that was, thinking in the sense of a very much long-term relationship when it comes down to it. At the end of the day, obviously we're going to get wrinkly, we're going to get old, we're not going to look the way we did. Um, and we're going to have, the feelings that those we surround ourselves with give us. So those moments of laughter that you share together, the character of who that person is, that you're with, is just super important. Who is that person shaping you to be? Because that's one of the things that I feel like I have with Kate is that, this hasn't been my easiest relationship where we just, it might have started off where we, just hang out and have a lot of fun together, and we're young and we're wild and free. But it's just, from what we are going through, we've had some challenges and things that have gotten thrown our way, and I feel that, it's the things that she's helping me become a better person, and I at just helping rethink how I see things and who I am, and I know, I'm young and that there's a whole lot of life left to live, but I do feel like it's just super important that she helps me become a better man, and I think that's one of those things that I just really admire about her, and her character, and she really is an example of just an amazing woman, and she's an amazing mother to Bennett. I'm just so grateful that, even though it wasn't very long after getting to start dating that he came, that I'm just so happy that she is such an amazing mom to Bennett, and that she's such an amazing partner to me, and I would say that, like, there's just, at the end of the day, there's going to be things that are so much more important than looks, and so I think that's why I said that.
One thing that's interesting is there is an episode, probably 40, 50, 60 episodes ago, where I had on a guy and we talked for 4 hours. It was a very long conversation.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
And at the end, as you and me are going to do in a few minutes, we always stand up right here and we take a picture, and I throw it up on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember after he left, I was looking at the picture we took, and then I was looking at his Instagram photos, and I almost couldn't recognize the two people. It was as if I was looking at two completely different humans. And so I asked ChatGPT, I was like, hey, this is what happened. And it said that as you get to know people, their features do change to you, especially if you're having deep conversations about, faith and family and your son. And that for me, what I'm experiencing is I'm asking questions to my guests that sometimes don't come up in the first 3 to 6 months of a relationship. So it said that as my brain is processing the person sitting across from me, that your looks become smoother to me and less edgier, and shadows fade. And so yes, people, literally, my perception of them will change from beginning of the episode to the end, especially in one that lasts for 4 hours in length. And so there is a small part of me that agrees with you that you almost take looks with a grain of salt, because I've had friends where we started out as just platonic friends, and then 7 months later I'll be like, man, this person's fucking sexy, like, excuse my language, but
Go for it.
and I'll be thinking about that, and I'm like, I wasn't attracted to them at all. We strictly met just because I enjoyed spending time with them, but now find myself like actually attracted to them. This is crazy.
Yeah.
So it is like I went on a date recently with someone who I considered a 6, but he was so kind to me in our messages that we were exchanging. I thought, I want to explore this more, because if I end up falling in love with him, the attraction will eventually, it'll just take care of itself.
Yeah.
So it's a weird thing where, like, I agree and I disagree, and I try to just keep an open mind with potential love interests, because to your point, there's so much more than just looks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. You can you can find beauty in anything. And I definitely agree with you, the way that when you spend time with somebody and you build that connection, like, your attractiveness to them grows along as well. It's all about, slowly building that relationship and building that connection. Where I truly do feel like your attractiveness physically to them grows as your love for them grows. And I think, if my memories serves me well, Bob Marley has a quote that, talking about women and love interests, and he said that the ocean is big and beautiful, but there's dark and deep depths. The moon is big and bright and full, but there's craters. And so he's just said that nobody's gonna ever be perfect, essentially. There's always gonna be flaws in each person, but it's all about just loving a person for who they are. Is going to be the most important thing. There's never going to be that one perfect person out there, whether it's a physical thing, or if it's something about a person. I don't truly feel like there's a perfect person out there, but there's a perfect relationship that you can strive towards, and just building a relationship with somebody. It's all about effort is the most important thing. So.
I have some friends who I think they were hoping that this was going to be a much more bigger segment of the podcast. I was like, I don't know. I think I don't. Go ahead.
No, I don't know. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I have in mind with this topic, but
what do you think about the show Love Is Blind?
It's, I never watched it until Kate put me onto it, and honestly, like, I'm hooked to it. It's amazing to see how, like, obviously the people that are on the show for the right reasons versus the people that aren't. I've noticed that it's like there's only one or two relationships that, like, actually work out, that are like what the show was designed to do, versus the all the other people that end up either getting married and then divorcing or breaking up right away, or deciding not to get married. There's obviously a big group of people that do propose to one another, but there's once it comes down to the very end of the show, it's very rare that you actually have that couple that stays together, that has a beautiful relationship. And so it's kind of weird. I don't know if it's like because that's they're the chosen ones that get that, or if people really do care that much about looks. But it's pretty wild to see the way that some of these people react, and how, like, they're full-grown adults in their 30s, and they are acting like they're in high school relationships. And obviously it shows that, like, there's a certain type of mindset you have to have when going to this show, and I think certain values too that align with people that you do, when you start talking to those people on the show, that they do end up gravitating towards the person that's, like, right for them. And so obviously, we love making fun of some of the people that are like. There's the one episode or one on season where the guy is like he keeps on like saying the F word, and he is like, Hannah, like, do you love this guy just because you said that because he said that he loved you first? I can say I love you. Is that what you need to hear? And so it's just that's something that we always make fun of because he's like F Hannah, and that's one of the funniest things. Is just seeing, the craziness of these people, and it's cool to see the different people that they kind of select from different areas. I think that's also kind of you get to learn a little bit about these different towns and states and stuff, like people that are from like the most recent one I think was like Denver, Colorado, and you get to see that was the one before or whatever. I'm getting lost in track. It was like Ohio is what it was, and you get to see what it looks like in that state and what people are the way that they act and stuff. So I feel like it's very broad and very different from each state.
Yeah. I went to a networking event for South by Southwest that was all about getting podcast creators together. And a lot of people there I had a hard time connecting with because they seemed like they were sort of in a what's in it for me mindset, and how they were determining who they did and didn't want to talk to. And one of the only guys that I felt like I made a very meaningful connection with was here from Singapore.
Really?
And I did think that was an interesting takeaway, was that the only person that I had a very meaningful conversation with was someone who does not live in America.
Yeah.
I'm making a very big generalization based off a very small set of data.
Yeah.
But how could I not notice that?
That's true. I do feel like it's very prominent in today's world that it is very much about what can I get from you. And I think that relationships have kind of got into that same aspect of, how much money you got, a lot, like 21 said. So, not me, but, that's one of those things that like status for sure, what you do for a living, those are things that are just, in my opinion, ever so very present. Is what do you look like? What do you drive? What do you do for a living? How much money do you make a year? And so that's never been something that I have ever thought or cared or felt like Caitlin. That's one thing that I really appreciate about her and our relationship is I've never been insecure in a way of I don't feel like I make enough. Like I do a very humble job. What I do for a living right now, as far as pay goes and things, it's very humble and very, I'm not. I do feel like I enjoy my job, obviously, because of the experiences I get to have with people and not just pay. And so I think that in relationships, and not like you said, it's not just relationships like romantically, but it's the relationships you build through networking, where people in today's world that they don't, if you don't have, something that they think they can benefit from, if your podcast following isn't big enough that people don't want to do it, or they, it's I think very much there. So
yeah, I've only had two, or maybe there is a third one recently. Of all the people I've invited on the show, I've only had 3 people so far that have said their immediate first response is, how many people listen to your show?
Yeah.
And to all 3 of them, I've just said, you know what? Thank you for responding. Never mind.
Really?
Yeah.
I respect that. I definitely respect
well,
that.
Thank you.
No, I mean, that's definitely that wasn't anything I really took into consideration when I saw this podcast. I think the first thing that I looked at was just going to the podcast, and I wanted to see, why you do this podcast was my number one thing. And when I saw that, it was all about, your stories that what's your trademark? The
Light the
light up.
eternal fire, so we can be a candle in the darkness on the dark night of your soul.
Exactly. And whenever you was reading that out loud, I was like, Dark Knight, and then you said the in game or the
Mhm.
yep, into the in game, and so I was like, the references. Batman's my favorite superhero growing up. So,
Oh, let's go.
so I was always Batman was my like nickname for myself. I don't know why, but that was always like that was my superhero. I love all the Batman movies, and my Snapchat name in from I think it was 6th grade was Batbin84. That's what whenever someone added me, it was Batbin84 if you went to my Snapchat. So, but yeah, that was like the biggest thing was like there's purpose behind this podcast. This is something that like I might be more of a storyteller than I am a podcaster, but the reasoning and the purpose behind it was one of the biggest things that attracted me to it. So
Let's go. So now I have to ask, and we're going to have some people screaming at their phones in a couple of seconds.
okay.
Probably the hardest question I've asked you all day. Who was your favorite Batman?
Oh,
We got Christian Bale, Ben Affleck, Val Kilmer, George Clooney. Who was the very first one from the 80s movies? I can see his face. With Michelle Pfeiffer and Danny DeVito. Might know.
I know
What
this
is his
one.
name? Shoot. But you know who I'm talking about?
Yes, I know exactly who you're talking
Yeah,
about.
so who's your favorite Batman?
Man, it's like I mean, it's hard because I also want to judge my favorite Batman off of my favorite villains, and so like to me, any movie that has the Joker in it is like automatically my favorite movie. Like I don't know what it is about it. I don't know if it's like the colors, if it's like his personality, but any movie with the Joker was like just is my top like favorite. So I would have to say I got to give it to Christian Bale, honestly. I think that The Dark Knight and having Heath Ledger, that's just top tier for me. And so I would have to give it to him.
That was probably one of the best movies I've ever watched in my life.
I very much agree. It's not just a Batman movie. Like it is like a work of art for sure.
What do you think the appeal is? Why were you so drawn to it?
I don't know. I feel like doing the research and hearing about the way that Heath Ledger like prepared for the role was one of the craziest things to me. Like hearing about the way that he isolated himself and that like he became the role, like the way that he let it take him over. And obviously there's a lot of respect for that, but I just like it's not just like the action, obviously like it's cool, but I just feel like that was just one of the movies where like I just was like, oh my gosh, like I just watched that and I want to watch it again. And so I feel that man, I'm blanking here. I'm getting to the part where brain is just
It's okay. It's
starting to slow down.
I don't know if you know this. It's actually 6:05 already, so we're about done anyways. But
Cool.
yeah, I don't know what the draw is either. I know I love the movie.
Yeah, it's something you can't really describe. I remember I used to play like one of my favorite scenes is like the opening when it's the bank heist.
Yes.
Like that is like top tier when it's like it's all about the how they like introduce him and it's like, okay, is this the Joker? Is this the Joker? And then like the way that it helps you like you think about how crazy he is, but then not just that, like how strategic he is. Like he has these ploys of like he has thought this out to a T. And like the timing of it, is like just super satisfying where like it goes from this character killing this guy, killing that guy, and then it all ends with him and the bus coming in at the exact right time. And it's like how in the world like that's just not possible. But like obviously to someone like the Joker, like it is. So
Yeah, the thing about that movie that I think I love the most is how captivating it was. From the he just kept throwing a curveball at you from when the body hit the mayor's office, and then the
Yeah.
shooting at the funeral for the commissioner, and then the hospital scene, and it kept building, and as soon as you thought you were at the climax, it was like nope.
Nope, not
And then
yet.
at the end with the boats when they had the remote controls for each other, and you're just like
Mhm.
oh, this is so good.
Exactly. I think about the scene in when it's Two-Face and he's in the hospital and it's the Joker, and all the memes where it's like, how the hell did you not know that was the Joker? Because he's got the like, it's very obvious, like he has the mask on, but you can tell he's wearing a fake wig and it's his eye covering, and he takes the Two-Face doesn't react until the very end, and he takes the mask off, and he's like sticks his arms out, he's like, oh, and hello, you sure walked in on a
That was
I caught the end of it.
literally perfect timing.
and that scene is just so funny. Like there's like humor in it as well. Obviously, like the Joker is just so funny to watch.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, when he says hello to Harvey Dent for the first time.
hey Bennett, God, let me see that stinky guy. Oh my goodness, there's a little man. Hey, hi. Could
Oh,
I
he's waving.
grab him?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, go grab
you
Bennett.
You fine with that? Yeah. What's he going? What's doing? Hi. You see the camera? Say hello. Hello, doggy. Hi.
Dad, what do you think about Bennett?
Hey.
What do you think?
What did your mama do?
There's a little baby here.
What
That
did
doesn't
your
happen
mama
very
do?
often, does it?
Hey, you're smiling. You want to smile for the camera? You're smiling. Hey.
Hi, Bennett.
Is that David? Ask David, did David make Daddy cry? Is that true? Did he make Daddy cry?
My back's cramping up.
Dad, you're a little baby. You really do act like a baby sometimes. Put the headphones on.
Well, was there anything that you thought we would talk about today that neither of us has brought up yet?
Honestly, not really. My mind, as soon as he walks in the room too, my headphones caught on his foot. No, I think we covered a lot. Honestly, we covered my whole life story pretty much. There we go. And so it's hard once he's in the room. I just like all my
bets are
mind.
off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my mind just goes straight to him and to Caitlin. And I, sorry, it's still like I'm still in shock of like I am the protector and the provider for this little guy and for mom over there. And you burping? You making a little burp? Probably has a diaper. We like to say boom booms. Oh, mama just changed to boom boom. Okay.
His whale onesie.
His little whale onesie. Yeah, he has all like oceanic themes. We love the ocean and ocean themes, and sharks are some of our favorites. We love blues. And he's got the prettiest blue eyes just like his mama.
He does. Yeah.
So, do you have anything you want to say, Bennett? Yeah.
Maybe next time.
No. Maybe not. He doesn't really know words yet, so.
Yeah.
He's only 2 months old.
Well, let's get you guys out of here so you can enjoy your Sunday night.
Yeah.
Ben, thank you so much for being here and for doing this today. I really appreciate it. This was a fantastic episode, and I can't wait to share it with the world and see who your story impacts.
Well, thank you, David. I really appreciate you, man.
Yeah, of course.
And
To the audience, real quick, guys, thank you as always for tuning in. I need you to do me a favor now, and we need to get this episode to whoever needs to hear it. That maybe, maybe there's someone out there who right now just got news that they're having their first kid and it was unexpected, and they feel like their world might be falling apart a little bit. And hearing how at peace Ben is with his story could be just a game changer for them. So what I need you to do is, if you're listening on YouTube today, subscribe to the channel. If you're watching on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, hit that follow button. And if you do this, my commitment to you will be to every Saturday release a story to light your internal fire at no cost to you. So do me this small favor. In the meantime, stay healthy, stay happy, and have a good Saturday night. Good night, everyone.